question comes into my email and YouTube comments a lot. People asking me on a pattern that uses, for instance, double pointed needles. They ask, can I use magic loop instead of double pointed needles? Can I use short circulars instead of double pointed needles? I think it's mostly just everyone trying to get away from using double pointed needles, but they're really not so bad. The answer is yes. Anytime a pattern calls for double pointed needles, you can always use your favorite method of knitting in the round. If that's magic loop or short circulars, or there are other products out there now using different things like the L-shaped double pointed needles or the flexi flips from Addie, which I haven't had a chance to try yet. And so I'm going to demonstrate, I'm going to give you a quick rundown on the 3 different options you have. And if you want a deeper dive, I will give you links to videos I have that go much deeper into these ways of knitting. But for now, I'm just going to give you a rundown to let you know that yes, you can substitute. And the pattern that I'm using in each one of these examples is exactly the same. It's my Easy Fingerless Mitts pattern, and I'll give you a link. It's a free pattern and tutorial. And it's, I think I cast on 40 stitches. I'm going to show you what 40 stitches looks like in each one of these styles. Let's go ahead and take a look. Okay, this first one I have is double pointed needles. And I think people see that there are all of these needles happening at once, and it's confusing, and sometimes people just say, I can't do it. I don't want to try it. Or they give it a try for 10 minutes and they're like, no, I don't like to knit that way. And so people reject double pointed needles. For a lot of patterns, double pointed needles are the way to go. They are the easiest thing to do. And I'm going to give you a link here to my video, Getting Started with Double Pointed Needles. But I'm going to give you a rundown of what they look like when you're using them. Now you have 3 needles at least going, maybe more, 4 or 5. But you're really only working with 2 needles at once, just like all knitting. I'm going to just work on those 2 needles. 1 needle in each hand. The other needles are just hanging out, waiting for me to get to them. And when I finish with 1 needle, I turn the work a little bit. I find my working yarn. The stitch to the left of my working yarn is always my next stitch, and that's how I keep doing it around and around. Now, one thing maybe people are worried about is that while those stitches are hanging out on those needles that you're not using, that things might slide out or fall out, and it can happen, but I'm using these bamboo needles. Bamboo needles have a good grip. Wood also has a good grip. Metal needles are a bit slicker, so there is more of a chance of your needles falling out, but if you're worried about it, try bamboo double pointed needles. Anyway, that's DPNs, but if you prefer magic loop, you can always do that. And magic loop is a way of knitting on a long circular needle, knitting a small circumference of stitches on a long circular needle. And I have 24-inch circulars here, I think. Yeah, must be. I get myself into a magic loop starting position, and I pull the back needle long, and then I just knit across those stitches. And when I get to the end of those stitches, I can turn my work, get myself back into the magic loop starting position, pull the back needle long, and knit those stitches again. You always want to watch the tension on the first stitch that you knit, because that last stitch is on the cord, not a needle. So it's on something much thinner than the needle that you're working with, and you can over tighten that stitch. So you just watch the tension, make sure it looks like it's as long as the stitch is as big as the stitches next to it, and you'll be fine. If you want a deeper dive on magic loop, I'll give you a link here to my video, Getting Started Using Magic Loop. And the last option I have here for my Easy Fingerless Mitts pattern, or any sock or any mitten pattern, whatever, is these 9-inch circulars. And these, I like using 9-inch circulars. The needles are little tiny things so that they're short enough to fit around. But once you get used to the way to hold them and use them, they're pretty great. There's like not a lot of adjusting. And I'm not complaining about adjusting. I know when you're using double pointed needles, you have to adjust 3 times each round as you get to a new needle. Using magic loop, you have to adjust, twice each round when you turn the work. These is just, they're just kind of scooting, scooting, scooting. And if you want a deeper dive on 9-inch circulars, I'll give you a link here to my video on 9-inch circulars. So that's 3 options for knitting in the round. They're all interchangeable. One thing I will say is the only time I wouldn't recommend using magic loop or certainly 9-inch circulars is if you're knitting something really thin like the fingers of gloves. When you have so few stitches and you're using magic loop, it can get really awkward. The cord seems to be like taking up more space than the stitches are, and it can mess with your tension. And 9-inch circulars are certainly too long to knit the fingers of gloves. That's a time where double pointed needles are really your friend. I think double pointed needles with really small circumference knitting are your best choice. Anyway, all the links that I gave in the video are there if you click the little I. They're also in the video description field and on my website. Hope that helps. Good luck.